Most founders think go-to-market is a launch plan, and it's not. It's a system, and if you don't have one, you're gonna burn through runway wondering why health systems aren't buying. I brought on Brett Jansen, who runs HealthTech House, a go-to-market agency specifically built for health tech and MedTech startups. She's got 16 years of healthcare commercial leadership, VP at Butterfly Network, taking handheld ultrasound to market, Chief Growth Officer at Heartbeat Health, senior roles at Optum and Cerner, and a lot of other organizations. In this conversation, she breaks down exactly how she's using AI to become a one-person growth team, why most startups confuse launch activities with actual growth systems, and her workflow hack where she built 16 pitch decks in a single flight going out to JP Morgan Health Conference. If you're trying to figure out go-to-market in healthcare where sales cycles can be 9, 12, even 18 months, this episode is packed with tactical stuff you can use immediately. Stick around for the whole thing. I know you're gonna love it. Brett, I'm super pumped to have you on the pod. We had a really good conversation. It could have been a week ago, could have been 3 weeks ago. I honestly don't remember because time is a flat circle and it's merging together these days. But like, super pumped to have you on. Where does the pod find you today?
Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. That's kind of my jam. You can find me at the Brett Jansen. That's like my profile tag or whatever. Slowly building my YouTube profile, but I don't want to share that yet because it's embarrassing right now, but soon to be on YouTube.
I'm with you. Physically, you are
in Tampa, Florida.
Physically in Tampa, Florida. Okay. Yeah, I've actually gotten a couple funny. I'll be like, "Where does this find you today?" And people will be like, "Oh, I'm in this office."
I'm in a coffee shop.
And I'm like, "Okay, let's peel the onion back here." Okay, so for those of you who don't already know Brett, which by the way, amazing content on LinkedIn and stuff, you gotta follow all of her different social channels. She really does put out awesome stuff. I think that's how we met. I think I saw some of your stuff and I was like, yeah, we got to talk. But Brett is the founder and CEO at HealthTech House, go-to-market agency they build exclusively for health tech and medtech startups. 16 years, commercial leadership roles, Chief Growth Officer at Heartbeat Health, VP of Strategy and Market Development at Butterfly Network, doing handheld ultrasound, right? I think that's what you guys had, yeah. And then senior roles, Optum, Signify Health, Cerner. I honestly love a lot of that because it's there's device, right? There's connected device, there's health tech, there's the Optum Signify right side, and then the EMR side, which is really interesting as well. I grew up, when I was cutting my teeth as a nurse, we were a Cerner facility. So I am a little partial to Epic, but I do.
People are.
Yeah. But I did, Cerner was fine. But anyways, helped close, raised a bunch of money, helped advise, probably hundreds of startups at this point.
I'm pretty sure if boomers would say that makes me a job hopper, but to your point, I think that it's given me a very well-rounded ability to kind of work in many different segments within healthcare, which I think makes me a little dangerous. So
I agree. And I actually don't, it's the only way to really advance in your career, it seems is to kind of do what boomers would call job hopping, right? But it's the days of you just got to be a company man and stay there for 30 years and they'll take care of you and whatever. That's not the case. It's they're just going to wait to fire you in a riff and not give you raises and then cut your vacation, whatever. I've done a lot of different stuff in my, 12, 15 years, whatever, how long I've been doing this. And I think it's the move. So let's unpack that. I always like to give people a chance at the start of this to say how you got to where you are today, kind of the flyover on your journey to where you are today. And then also, kind of tuck in there, what drives you, what motivates you? What are you passionate about?
Well, I'm my OG role is in sales through and through. So what motivates me is money. I'll just be
coin operated.
I think it's important that people know, because some people will come to me in my DMs and be like, can you teach on how did you make the leap from sales into VP? Interesting fact. My first job at Cerner was a facilities coordinator at the gym. I sat at the front desk and checked people in, no joke. And a lot of executives would come in for their private training and they were like, you're really good with clients. You should be in sales. And so I was like, maybe I should be. And I slowly kind of made my way into marketing. And then another executive noticed me. And then I went into the sales training program. From there, I worked for Cerner, specifically EHR market. I worked for Optum twice, once on the analytics team, once on the rev cycle outsourcing team, which was wild. Those deal sizes are around 50 to up to $1 billion in total contract
crazy.
value. I had a mentor that said, you did really great at Optum. Now let's go take a company public. That's where we went to Butterfly Network, my first opportunity dipping my toe in the med device space. And after that, we did that during COVID. And I just thought, I want to make more money and I want more control of my time. And I moved in consulting around that point. I did go back one more round to take the CGO job at Heartbeat Health, which is a Series A startup. And again, just found myself at the end of the year like, yeah, I'm ready to go back to consulting. And I haven't looked back. And AI has given me the opportunity to now create 2 businesses that are wildly successful. You'd have to, like, there's just no amount of money that could get me back to a W-2 role at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. When you're saying like AI is giving you the ability, right, or opportunity, like I think that's a great way to put it because like I feel that like all the time. I'm like, how did I even do stuff like 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I'm like, honestly, I'm like, I just wouldn't have done this or I wouldn't even have tried to do this,
No.
before I had it. So honestly, I'm like not even sure where to start because there's just like so much there. I'll ask you this because I know we're going to talk about AI a lot. Like when did you hop on the train? Like I remember, was it Chat GPT like 3.0 was the first one, right?
And I was like a very, very early beta tester. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was originally using it like Google search, just like randomly asking things. And then I actually came across on Facebook, ironically enough, I came across this couple that were doing like training. And it was like a weekend webinar. And I was like, what the hell? And I attended it. And it was the most basic level of like now looking back, I'm like, wow, like that's crazy how far we've come. But just like teaching you how to prompt, like act like a marketer, blah, blah, blah. And all they were doing the entire 2-day webinar that I attended was just showing you like potential use cases, like how to build a business plan. And that's where I was like, oh, this, I can get really dangerous with this. I think the people that do the best, at least right now with AI, obviously you've got the more technical users that are developers anyways, but those that are just curious and want to do more and like don't have an off switch, I feel like those are the people like ourselves that AI has become our superpower because we just continue to like test it and be like, well, that didn't work. And so I'm going to try something different. I think a lot of folks are just trying it and they're like, this is stupid. I don't understand it. And then they go back to their old ways. As opposed to us, we're constantly like, a new models come out. Like, I can't wait to geek out on it. So that's like, I feel like I've just entered a whole new chapter of my career of learning and being challenged. And I don't know where I was going with that other than like, it's just an exciting time.
No, I'm with you. Like, I feel like too, I see that same thing. Like, I feel like I'm almost in a bubble. Like, I have like my work friends and like the team at EXO, and like we're constantly talking about like different tools. We're trying new tools every single week. I just signed up for a demo for a new tool today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like I'll try to talk to like some of my friends about it that are just like not in tech or not in even MedTech, but like not in doing AI stuff or whatever. And they'll have the same experience where they just like try to do something like, oh, it sucked at doing this. And it's like, okay.
And got the date wrong. And I'm like, okay, we'll keep trying, correct it.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what about the second time you tried? And it's like, I did. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, but also too, you kind of touched on something like one of the ways I feel like that AI can be like a big superpower, and not even like in kind of an application that gives you superpower abilities, but like how to kind of make it become a core competency skill that gives you kind of like broad, diverse superpowers. Is like, honestly, when you start to kind of understand how they work and like, hey, this is like there's tokenization and like baseball bat versus like a bat hanging in a cave or different tokens, even though it's the same word and like words around them. And then this gets pushed through a neural network. Like when you kind of understand all of that and then the context windows and like even, okay, there's how the models work, but then how do these tools work and how do these tools establish frameworks and master prompts and like injections and things like that? Like, once you really understand that, like you start to get so much better with using any individual model. But then when someone's like, oh, here's a project or here's like custom GPTs, right, when those came out. But then like, hey, we have a tool that does X, Y, and Z. You can almost like innately know like what's going on a little bit in the background and have that kind of software literacy. And like, then you're like, okay, now I know how I need to use this or prompt it and like how I can use this to then better inform and, do something with a different tool and that kind of interconnectivity of tools. But I think a lot of that is like predicated on kind of digging in and kind of understanding, being curious enough, right? To
Yeah.
understand and unpack how they work, right? I want to talk about, I'm having to like pull myself away from just like making this a fully AI podcast. So
I want to add to that because I know we're going to talk about more MedTech related stuff, but I think that, I'm seeing a lot of leaders out there that are wanting a one size fits all. Even some of the engagements that I'm doing, they're like, well, can't we just use ChatGPT for everything? And it's just that's not how it works. And I'm not saying that people have to go out and pay for an enterprise license for all of these things, but they all have very specific use cases. I think, the recent Opus 4.6 is showing that Claude is, in my opinion, becoming a quick front runner for almost all the things that I do.
it's been
But
there in my mind.
yeah, I mean, but if you would have asked me that 3 months ago, I was a big ChatGPT user, and now I actually just yesterday, moved down to the $20. I was on the $200. So, unfortunately, what's the most fascinating is it's not a one size fits all market, and it's changing so rapidly that what I recommend to a client 3 months ago, it might change even tomorrow. And I think that companies and organizations just have to be okay with that. I've just never seen technology move this quickly before. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the .com movement, and this is just different. It just is. Like, it's hard to articulate.
Yeah, well, it's like people, you hear millionaires and you hear billionaires, but people don't have like a visual grasp or concept of like what a billion is, and so you see them like putting it rice grains out on a table. Each grain of rice is 100K, and then you look at this pile of a billion, and you're like, oh shit! Then it all kind of clicks for you, right? People don't, in the similar way, people don't understand what exponential growth is. Like you can like maybe see a chart and be like, oh, that's exponential, but like so few things in our life we experience have exponential, like emergent, truly exponential qualities to them. So when we're seeing these like models move and stuff like that fast, like people like you and I that are like interacting with it all the time, it's still hard to like kind of comprehend and wrap our brain around.
I'm still like, whoa, that's crazy that it just did that. And that happens to me at least once a week.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
that's
if you're a little bit distant from it, it's even harder to grasp. But the one size fits all thing, I think one of the things that like people think AI is almost like it's not a I mean, it is software, but like they are trying to treat it almost like, okay, well, we'll use this tool to do this thing. And they want to see it as this like Swiss Army knife software, which like it's not really that, in a way where it's like you just bring it in, it can solve these problems. I feel like any AI model is only going to be as good as the context that you give it and then your ability to effectively interact with it. And so like if the AI literacy at your organization is just like, baseline low, like you're gonna just have like very poor success with any of it that you do. And I kind of go back and forth on like whether I think the right approach is to just be like, hey, partner with a group that knows AI and then has the domain expertise you need, and then just have them do a lot of stuff for you. And I think we've kind of taken that approach in MedTech with some of the stuff we're doing at EXO and like, MedTech vendors and campaigns, just because I feel like that's what has to be done. But like, if I could just like pull myself out of the frame here and just basically say like, okay, what's the best option? It's obviously like raising your AI literacy of your entire organization, hiring for it is the best move.
right.
But like, partnering with an agency versus like having an internal like head of AI kind of thing, right? Where it's like they're just in and out constantly. I actually don't know what like the best move of those two options are. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I do. I actually spoke about this on an earlier podcast because I met with a company last week. They have about 3,000 employees around the US. And this person is a senior VP of sales. And he said, we've got multiple departments. They're all using AI differently. And we want to find a way, to help enable our sales team. I kind of have like the dream stack for sales. And he said, can you come in and help us assess, like, should we hire someone full time to manage this? Or, and from my perspective, if you don't have AI literacy, then you need to have someone that comes and identifies like where are the bottlenecks in the organization. Because instead of thinking like, how do we transform our whole company? I'm more wanting to start with, okay, well, how do I transform what Monday morning looks like? Like very, because I feel like if you try and boil the ocean, back to your point, if you don't have the literacy in place, it's just going to be like a failed SaaS deployment. And so these companies are, starting to reach out to me, and I'm not a developer. Like, I'm not going to come in. I might pull in, development partners, but I want to come in on a practical and like strategic sense and say, where are the bottlenecks in sales, marketing, product, ops, etc. I have a tool to recommend for this. Let's build out what the use case could be specifically to that particular role. And then if you want to go deeper and have like some automations or start to go agentic, let's bring in a company or a development partner to do that for you. I think that that's going to be the best way to do it, although that's not what most companies are doing. So
No, they're not. They're not. I would say too, like, I know you're like coming on the team Claude, but
yeah, I
like
know.
honestly, Brett, you've got to just like force commit to using Claude code, use it in Cursor, because like the whole like, oh, building custom, I'm not a software developer, like you are. Like
Yeah.
you have the skills to do it, and like Claude code makes
I
it
mean, I know
so.
Python. That makes me kind of dangerous,
Dude,
but
like, but the thing is, like, you could be like, you could fully build and deploy these tools. And honestly, that's what we've been doing with like a lot of the MedTech vendors work is like, we'll identify, it's like, hey, like, you need a quote builder, basically, where it's
yeah,
like, you're taking all of this information out on the client, and then you have to build this like crazy granular spreadsheet, and then like you're sending these like Word doc proposals to people that you have to build by hand and whatever. And
right.
so like we built it, we're kind of like doing the refining piece, which does take some time. Like getting it to
Yeah.
80% accurate, you can do pretty quick. Getting it to 95 or 98 takes like
Yeah.
months. I saw an article on that the other day, but basically we're saying like, okay, so we're going to need semantic this, and we're going to use Claude for this, and Claude Opus for this, and then we're going to have to do another step, so we're going to have the agent workflow, and then Claude agent SDK software developer kit we have to use, and then we're going to use this specific like Panda tool or whatever for digital proposal creation. And so we're basically like if we were to say like, hey, use these tools to do this, they're never going to do it, right? So what we've tried to do is basically say like, we're going to give you a interface that like, whether you're the tech savvy 28-year-old of the company, or Frank that's 52 and he's stuck in his ways, like it's like a 15-minute training, and you can just click kind of through it and like provide inputs in a very like straightforward way, but it kind of give them the value and the value of like an interconnected multi-tool agentic experience without them having to like know how to do any of that stuff.
My husband made a really interesting point yesterday, because first of all, now that Claude can build like really good decks, I was in the process of actually hiring a deck designer, because I just feel like I'm always buried in doing different pitch decks for clients, and I always use GenSpark for them, and it's been a little wonky lately, and so I just tried out of the blue the new Opus model, and the deck was so good. I was like, okay, this is very different, because I can just drop a screenshot into it and it will recreate it perfectly. But my husband made a comment last night. He was like, AI is really going to change the difference between a generalist and like SMEs, because instead of any of my clients having to go out and be like, well, we need somebody that's really good at design and, product marketing and copywriting and social media management, I can kind of be all of those things to clients if I enable myself with the right tools to do it.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, like that's where I'm building my business now, is like, how do I need to outsource this to support my clients, or can I build this with AI or enable myself to do it with AI? So I'm still using, my brain, my 16 years of experience. Clients are still getting that access to me, but I'm delegating it out to my army of agents to go do it. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, you're not hiring people, so that's poor for the job market. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm a business owner, and profits matter. So if I can do more with technology, then I'm going to do that. Versus hiring out. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And like, and I feel the same way. Like, we're trying to keep our team at XO like intentionally small or whatever. And like, we're leveraging agents for all that stuff. But like, I'm honestly too, like what you were saying about, what happens to generalists versus SMEs and stuff like that. Nate B. Jones, I don't know if you follow him on YouTube. He's like incredible. He is kind of like bleeding edge with this AI and stuff. And like, he was talking the other day about how full stack dev and the back end and the front end guy, and then the product manager, and then the sales guy, and the marketing, et cetera. Like, those are all blending and merging and converging into like one person, right? Like, you can do that with one person, right? Or, two people can handle all five of those things, working both on all of them together with a series of agents that they're orchestrating. And like, I think that's very true. And like, we've all seen these people in organizations, and like, sometimes they're the founders or sometimes whatever, but they're those like kind of glue people that can be like, hey, like, I can tell you why this edge needs to be radiused differently and how that will affect the clinical practice and the ergonomics here, but then also how we'll be able to market that and what the brochure is going to look like. And those people when they know how to use AI, you should find them and pay them whatever they ask for.
I would probably put myself in that category. I mean, I'm not a developer by any means, but I can build apps. And I think that's why I'm being sought out a lot more, because I think people don't know what they want. So I kind of walk them to the well. I don't think I'm saying that right, but I lead them to the well and say, like, this is what you actually need. I kind of give them a teaser of what the capabilities are. And I've had some people push back and say, like, what makes you a chief product officer now? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just really good at synthesizing all of the points of views from your leadership team, as well as market intel, competitive intel, do a full SWOT analysis, similar to any sort of McKinsey data that you would pull and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for. I can pull all of that into a project, synthesize it, and create an entire launch plan for you with no product marketers, no copywriters, no nothing. And I'm kind of acting as your all in all commercial team. And when they see that, they really start to like have a reaction like, oh, we got to rethink our entire business. And that's kind of my intention.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to scale myself. So I want to, I just, don't you feel like you want other people to know like how incredible this technology is? And I feel like I shout it from the rooftops on LinkedIn every day. And still I get with people that are like, yeah, we're not using it at all. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, I feel like I'm screaming into the void.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. It's very I fully feel like that. I think before we have to talk about the MedTech stuff.
I know.
But before we move on from this, like one of the things that I've like found, and I've like talked to real estate companies about doing stuff like initiated projects, and like they ended up getting like, put on hold because like those internal roadblocks that like whether it's the IT group they outsource stuff to or parent company or whatever, like I've had to get put on hold or whatever. But like one of the things that I've seen with like medtech companies, real estate companies, like other groups I've talked to, for you to really effectively use AI, you have to be able to define what good work looks like, right? You have to be able to also break down why it is good work, because models now are becoming it's more and more effective to explain why something is the way it is and why you did it that way and why the process that you're using works well, right? Versus like what, right? Like here's what it looks like, or like what it looks like is not great. How it should look and how it should flow and things like that, it's kind of a little bit better, but like describing the why behind stuff and then being able to define what good work looks like and then being able to direct and instruct a large language model or an agent how to do it and why to do it. I just feel like people are fundamentally bad at defining what good work looks like. You know what I mean? Like you'll be like, hey, like what problem do you want to solve? And then like this problem. And then they'll be like, okay. And you're like, what does a great outcome look like? Like, what would you want this to be able to do? What would the output look like? And like, they'll struggle. Like they really will struggle to be able to like even say like, this is what I want it to look like or whatever. Like they can maybe send you an example of something their team did before or whatever. But like, especially when it's like in a new medium or something where it's like, oh, well, we want to create a dashboard that helps us do this. And we don't have that yet. And you're like, all right, what would you want it to look like? They're like,
what's the vision
I don't know.
And what is like, what would the, if it was made right, like what would the output be and how would that change your business? Because it's all about context. I know we have to talk about MedTech, but I think that you have to start with the end in mind whenever you're engaging with it. And if you don't tell it that, then it will just kind of go on its own. And that's where people are like, this is stupid. And I'm like, well, you're not using it right. And that's why, there's still going to be a need to be a human in the loop, people that have expertise that know what good looks like. And, you have to have critical thinking skills, which I think a lot of people unfortunately don't have in this world. And so if you don't have the ability to kind of like think it is in a process logically, it's probably not going to be very powerful for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay. So I want to ask some questions about Butterfly doing the go-to-market piece, right? So talk to me about like when you came in, like what was you came in around Series C for them?
Yeah. It was a really weird time when I came in. So they were selling the device on the website, kind of like a D2C model. It was, I think, $2,000 at the time. And they were selling it point of care ultrasound direct to physicians. You had to plug in your MPI number, but it was really just more of a commerce model. And I came on and my mentors who kind of recruited me to come over there. And he was like, hey, I want you to run sales. And I had a counterpart, shout out to Matt Coombs, because he's just blown up since then. But he was like, I also want you to help us with our go-to-market strategy. And I honestly didn't know what that was because I had always been a sales rep or a sales leader. And so I came in and he basically was like, we want to expand and sell beyond the website. Where should we go? And I was lucky to have some good internal counterparts to work with me, but we did a lot of it. Now looking back, if we would have had AI, we didn't. I don't even know how we pulled it off, but we did market analysis of selling into, small rural hospitals. We did market analysis of maybe pitching to residency programs, which was a big path that we ended up taking. But like we wanted to know like who the buyers were across all different market segments, what was their buying appetite for something like this? What did we need to put in terms of like sales enablement from like an ROI calculator, like kind of all of those things that are involved in the process. I had always been the person that was in sales that was like given the deck, and I'd always get in trouble because I'd be like, well, can I fix this deck? I don't like it. Or I don't like the list that you gave me. So can I make my own? And I would have sales leaders be like, Brett, you just need to go close deals. And I was like, but I want to help build the strategy before I go close the deal. So it ended up being a very natural inflection point for me to move away from like a traditional B2B sales and move into this like very vague go-to-market space.
I'm a big fan of kind of the disposable pixel thesis of like nowadays with AI, like you can have sales material that is like a one of one that you just built for that client, but you did it programmatically and you send it to them and it's bespoke and they feel like they're special, and the metrics and the ROI like kind of talk to them. Like, compare that to like an ROI spreadsheet where it's like you send them a spreadsheet, maybe you plugged in their numbers and you got to lock these cells and all that stuff, right? Like it's a better experience. And like, I do think there's like a little bit of a rub that, MedTech is going to have to reckon with in terms of like being able to, right? Like how do you, if you've got like a disposable pixel type model and maybe even the messaging changes a little bit, like how do you route that through your quality management system? Like what are your guardrails there? You know what I mean? Yeah. But what was like one of the big, I know you kind of went through, like we looked at rural, we looked at residency was big. There was the commercial model, ROI stuff. Like what was like one or two of the biggest like linchpins, would you say, to you guys being successful? And how did you like either define or recognize that success when it happened?
I mean, the residency program was a big unlock because, the board at the time, and they went through a lot of leadership changes as we went through a SPAC during COVID and then we IPO'd. So that in and of itself was just wild because we changed leadership multiple times in that process. And so the original team was like, we need you guys to sell, I believe it was like 2,000 probes by the end of it was something insane. And I'm not trying to like give away insider information. I'm just like, this is reflecting on 2019. And the best way for us to sell them at scale was to sell them in bulk quantity to residency programs where there was 500 to 600 students being graduated at any given time. So my point of view is how can we find a wedge with the least path of resistance to accelerate a deal? And in healthcare, especially if you're selling in a health system, it's anywhere from 9 to 18 months. So I had a 4-month window to try and figure out how do we accelerate this. So that was a natural path. The other piece, and I know Butterfly's changed the name of it, but we were also doing software plus the probe itself, which is why I think myself and my mentor brought into the company was the software edition. And we productized it. Like we gave it a name, we gave it like a very specific, use case. We built out all of these different educational models with it. So instead of it being like, we're just a probe company or a POCUS company, it really became something tangible that our reps could like walk into a hospital and say like, we built this very custom point of care use case program for you, including education, including wraparound software that integrates into Epic or whatever. We were one of the first organizations to do something like that in the like ultrasound space.
Yeah. I mean, 2020, 2021, like absolutely. Right. I mean, you bring up a good point around like the productization of the software. I think a lot of people, I always say this, like MedTech people are like much less like bits and bytes. They're more like cells and atoms kind of thing, Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people overlook that, like when you have software, like obviously people interact with your product, it has different constraints than like your software if you have a software element to it. And like that software is like really a way that you can build affinity, build stickiness, traction, create champions and advocates, right? Like your device is what it is and it works how it works and it does a function. But the UI, the software, the experience around all of that is like a huge opportunity. It kind of cuts both ways because I've seen startups and ventures and things where it's like, oh, well, we have this thing and it's going to be able to give them this data. And I'm like, give who that data?
Yeah.
Right. And what do they do with it? And do they have the staff? Are they trained to be able to interact with this data? Is this going to be like a dashboard that is just like never opened? Are they getting pinged in email? Like, they haven't thought through the and then what with like the data they're generating and whose responsibility that data is at the organization. So I think being very intentional about like when and how and who interacts with your UI, your software, and the data it generates. Like, you have to be super intentional about it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before we go to the next question.
No, with Butterfly, our biggest barrier to getting like enterprise deals was adoption. Like, we had sent out hundreds of probes to ED physicians to say like, test it out, give us feedback, but none of them could get their hospitals to allow them to use it. So we found that adoption at an enterprise level was the most challenging aspect of, kind of a new go-to market strategy. So we ended up pivoting and including implementation and education with it, because we felt like if adoption is the biggest barrier, likely because the clinicians or the IT teams don't understand the technology, what if we wrap education as part of the deployment so they feel that they know how to use it, they know like what the use cases are, like very specific clinical use cases. Like for an ED physician, we came up with this whole playbook for FAST, which is like if a patient comes in, like they do like very specific vitals, how do you use Butterfly for those vitals? And then we could create a whole content calendar just about that, and we could build education around it. If you start to get, physicians like saying, I need this in my hospital because this was the use case and this is what it did for patient outcomes, and I was able to do it so much quicker, then that becomes very sticky for enterprise sales because the CFO gets it, the IT people get it, and you've got clinicians that are demanding it. Any startup that I'm working with is saying like, it was funny when you said they build the software and they're like, okay, well then what? Every time I walk into a practice, I'm like, I know they have a practice management system. I know that they're doing diagnostics here, but you still handed me a tablet, or not a tablet, you still handed me a clipboard to fill out all my information. So like, meaningful use was 15 years ago, and we still don't have people documenting in the record itself. So if you don't like have a point of view in the sales process of this is what you're going to do when we implement you, we're going to train you on how to use it so you're actually adopting the technology, then that account becomes an expansion account. You've landed them, they're using it, they become advocates for you, referral partners, and then you expand into other adjacent practices, hospitals, et cetera. And I think most startups forget that part of the business.
Yeah. It's not like getting that PO is like a mile marker. It's not the finish line, right? Like they need to reorders is great. Sticky use, you're 9 months in, they're still using it. And they're like, you see data that they're using it really effectively and a lot. Like that's what you got to be like thinking is like, that's kind of your finish line to some degree. Right. And then it's just customer success stuff. So one more question on this, we'll keep moving. Looking back at you guys as kind of go to market and launch, et cetera. You kind of mentioned that you guys made an intentional choice to invest more into education and training, right? As part of that, right? So, and I would say like maybe try to couch this in the hardware side too a little bit for the MedTech audience out there. But like, what areas of the go-to-market and launch do you think you, like looking back, you invested not enough in or didn't spend enough attention to? Maybe some things you over-invested in or thought that was, this thing was going to be really big or a linchpin or like you could count on and it wasn't.
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm going to say this as applicable to point of care ultrasound. We did not have enough clinical people on the sales team looking back because they knew how to use the device itself. And we did really good training with our clinical team, but they could do like a bladder scan. And that was pretty much it. Totally fine. However, I had one guy that was on my team, and one of the best salespeople I ever worked with. He was an ultrasound tech by trade, and he crushed everybody because he used to do it. And so he would walk into a hospital and literally walk around and do show and tell without actually pitching anybody. He was really just showing what the tool looks like in a clinical practice perspective. And I, looking back, because like we did a lot of hiring in that time, and I had never worked a med device before. So unfortunately, like we targeted a lot of software people because we were obviously wrapping software into this. I wish I would have had like a clinical sales lead on every single team and almost
Yeah.
like partner them with the software person is like a team sale versus individual territories, because I think that we would have crushed it even more had we done that.
Yeah, that's a great thought there. Any like sales tools or kind of like the tool side of the process, I'm curious that were like that you thought was like really pivotal. Like this could be CRM type stuff. This could be like another just ancillary tool or process where it was like for communication, whether it's follow-ups, maybe it's like how you got education materials deployed, anything on that
Yeah.
you want to mention.
I mean, we were a big Salesforce shop, and when I came on, I also joined with a VP of Sales Ops who is one of the best in the business, and I found out quickly that med device guys, and I say guys because I'm pretty sure all my reps were guys, they don't like documenting their activity in Salesforce at all.
No.
So part of my job was, how do I get them to do this? Because at the end of the day, like we got to a point where at the end of each week, we were tracking how many probes were sold that week.
Yeah.
And I also wish, doing some of the work I do in AI, I wish that we would have had an ability to transcribe some of their sales meetings, because they were, even during COVID, I mean, they were still meeting with people and trying to, I mean, at one point we all kind of got cut off from accessing hospitals, but I wish I would have had the foresight, to do more like discovery or like role play with them, because I came into that seat not knowing how they operate as salespeople. And I could have done so much more had I transcribed some of their actual sales calls live and then like synthesized, okay, what he says is working every single time. I can use that to coach the lower, like this rep that's not doing very well. Like now there's so many tools out there with AI that didn't exist back then, that you can synthesize what good looks like and then teach the rest of the team to do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think the meeting transcription thing is a huge unlock. I'm like, I have shadow.do. It's like a meeting note taker, but it's like AI native, and it runs as a desktop app, so it doesn't hop into calls as like as like another participant. But I've got it like auto saves every single transcript to my hard drive. And then I've got like I put like a Claude workflow basically together, and I've got it connected to my calendar, and I think it's connected to my Gmail also. But anyways, I run it like on Mondays, and it looks back at my entire last week meetings from my Google Calendar, goes and grabs my transcripts, matches those up, like identifies, follow-ups, action items, like stuff that's like deliverable based, and then like we'll create tasks, draft follow-up emails if it calls for it. And then it will create a task on my Google Calendar for when I should do that thing, and like draft and like put in the description of the task, like the thing I should follow up about, or draft the email. And Brett, if we discuss features on a call, it will draft a PRD for that feature that we discussed.
Well, that's cool. I was going to say, I have a very similar setup with Granola. I have it, and I set it up, Claude Cohort set it up for me. I basically told me what I want it to do, and I sat back and watched it do it. It was wild. I just did that 2 weekends ago. But same flow. Yours is a little bit more advanced. I need to work with it, but yeah, it's taking all my Granola calls, putting them into a Google file, and then that pulls it out into my Notion board, and my ops person can see it, and it already spits out what the tasks are. And so that way they can be delegated out to people or agents. It's remarkable, because at the end of each day, I don't know about you, but I'm always like, what I jump from call to call. Like, what do I have due now? And I know that that's not different if you're in corporate. So having the ability for somebody to like take hours worth of consolidation of your task and just feed it to you is remarkable.
Yeah. And I think like patching those types of things, right? Like you've got this system that you just described, and then you've got something that you can take that and then do something with it, right? And then you can like, it's like kind of daisy chaining these AI efficiencies together, where you get a compounding effect. You're like, man, this feels like magic, right? But yeah, and on the sales piece too, like I think it's called Monarch. I just like tried to schedule a demo, but like you should check it out. It's like a brand new like sales ops type thing, where it's like it automatically like listens to your calls and then can like update stages in your CRM for you and different stuff like that. And then they have like a sales training thing where you can be like, like a CRO, I think, or something they were calling it, where it was like you can go chat with it. And it's like, how did I do in that call? And it'll give you like pointers and tips and things right? That's
Yeah.
obviously driven by a system prompt for like what good looks like, I would
Yeah.
imagine. But anyways, I want to check it out because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm trying to think like what am I not asking about? Like what am I missing maybe on the MedTech side or otherwise? What have I not talked about? I do want to ask about your event that you have coming up, by the way, too.
Yeah. One thing that I get asked a lot in my DMs is, sales reps that are not directors yet or not VPs. And I think this is a good question for both of us to answer. They'll ask, what could I be doing right now from an AI perspective or just a leadership perspective? Like, how do I get to VP and above levels? And I think it's different for med device versus or, like healthcare software. But I get asked that a lot. And I think there's a difference between just being hungry and being a hunter and just going out there and, closing the deals and great. If you want to be very just like that's your path and you just want to be a sales rep, great. But if you have, ambitions of crossing over into consulting or becoming a VP, I think that, it's important for people to continue to stay curious. But now with AI, I think that junior sales reps, whatever it may be, just go into it and start, asking it to role play with you as if you were already a VP, or just ask it, this is what I do for a living. Here's what my goals are. Put together a career plan for me to get to this goal and then march towards it, because I can't coach everyone that comes into my DMs about career progression, but I think I'm starting to see a bit of an inflection point where just being a device rep or a software rep is not enough for people. And they see kind of like this, windshield of AI ahead of them. They're like, how do I prepare myself to be part of this next workforce?
Yeah.
Leader, as a thought leader, potentially, and just make as much money in the short amount of time that we have on this earth.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel like we've got kind of like an arbitrage window right now of like the next 2 to 3 years. Like if you're really like digging into AI, like you're going to be on the other side of that, and it's going to be like a haves and have nots situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think too, like for like specific, like what you were saying with like the med device sales reps and how do I get to like here or there. I feel like healthcare continues to be just this kind of like unstable, wobbling giant that just like marches forward because we always have to have healthcare.
Right.
But like within this beast, right? There's value being extracted in the wrong places. There's, a bloat of the administrative layer, which I pray to God that AI can like crush some of that. But access for reps is getting tougher. Like the doctor used to be like, yeah, you want to buy my people lunch at my clinic? Like, happy to have you. I'll give you 15 minutes. Like now it's like, I don't care if you bought them lunch. I don't want to see you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't care what you're selling me. Like, I actually don't even want you in here. I don't care if you're buying my people lunch. Like, it's honestly gotten that bad. I've heard multiple doctors say that. So reaching doctors is harder. Getting access is harder. Hospital ownership has changed. There's private equity back. They're closing these facilities. There's consolidation. They want to limit the amount of vendors they have. They don't want to expand it. They want to cut the budgets. Reimbursements going down. So like all of these things end up being negative or like downward forces on sales reps. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So anyways, just what like kind of categorizing that, and then I agree with what you're saying. I see this with a lot of people when they start trying to use AI, because I agree, like it's like one of the best things you can do is to be curious with it. People think that you can really only ask it, or it's really only valuable to like do things for you, convert this document or do this, or maybe do some research. But like, and this is probably emergent over the past, like, I would say year maybe, but like asking it to help you think through things and like asking it for like ideas and like, what am I missing? And like, and then so thinking through it, but then also like, hey, like, I don't like that part. Like people really just like accept what it gave you as like, it's like an input in, output out. And like, I was like, you can ask it to like change the vibe of something. You know what I'm saying? Like you really can like talk, like think through things like really creatively, abstraction, curiosity, exploring things with it. And like, talking about your own career path.
Like a life coach or I did a speaking engagement back in December and it was my first one. And I followed Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank for this engagement. So I was like kind of freaked out about it. And I used Claude to role play with me in the car it was in Naples on the drive down. So like I had the questions that I thought they were going to give me. and I had Claude basically role play as if, because it was a panel, and I would say my response to the answer, and then it would kind of like coach me on how to do it better. And
Yeah.
then I'd be like, okay, ask me again. By the time I got down there, I didn't need my note cards. Like, I was cool as a cucumber. And it was in front of a bunch of like, private equity, really high up people, plus Barbara Corcoran. And I crushed it. And I don't think that I would have had that level of confidence had I not figured out, oh, I can role play with Claude.
Yeah.
So, and the answers were so good. Like, even when I got up on stage, I was like, dang, that was a good answer. Thanks, Claude, for that idea on how to, respond to that. So again, like, I don't take the output as it is. I know we're back to AI again. It's easy
No,
to
it's
geek
fine.
out on it.
I know, it's fine.
To your point, like, I wish that sales reps specifically, if they want to like secure their job in the next 3 to 5 years, I think the AI super users, or honestly any organization in the next 18 months is going to say, like, how are you using AI?
Yeah.
It's just going to become a mandate. So regardless if you're a sales rep in med device or a marketer or a product person, like, that's going to be asked of you likely on your next, job interview or your next job hop. So like, I would start getting into it now, or else you're going to be behind in 18 months.
I'm going to go one step further, Brett. I think in 18 months, and maybe it's a little bit longer, I think part of the reason that people are going to hire you is going to be because the skills that you bring into the job. And I do not mean like soft skills. I mean like, hey, I've developed a library of like 15 different like, Claude agent type skills that, I can deploy to be like highly effective. And I have my own operating system for this that I've built that I use internally. And like, they're going to basically be like evaluating like you, of course, and like all the stuff they evaluate now, but then also like those like literally like .md file skills and then internal tools that you have. And like to the point where it's like, do we have a QR code with your Git repo on there where they can see the skills? Yeah. And you may think like, whatever, Spencer, that's dumb. Like, if you're listening to this, if you want to understand how powerful these skills can be, these technical skills, Claude agent skills, Anthropic released, I think it was like 30 skills the other day. That was like legal skills and, I think it was maybe some copywriting skills.
Yeah, there's a copywriting in there.
Right. Yeah. So it was a bunch of skills, but the biggest one that caused a lot of this turbulence was like the legal skill. Right. Yeah. And it wasn't even that much. It was like not that many lines of code, not that much stuff. No. But between Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis, RELX, another one, I think it was like Walters Kluwer or whatever. Yep. Yeah. It erased $1 billion. No, not $1 billion. I think it was
more than that.
100 billion or maybe a trillion. Yeah. I think it was $1 trillion.
I think it was $1 trillion actually.
They released this. People like started testing it and see what they could do with it. It erased $1 trillion worth of market cap from those companies. Why? Because those companies sell like legal data, like that is used for analysis, financial data, that type of stuff. So if that is what the people and like the people that are actually moving the money, not in your Robinhood account trading pool, but like the pools of money that are actually moving markets like that much, if they're saying, oh, here's 30 skills, $1 trillion of market cap change. Do you not think that you having 15, 20, 30 skills that are designed for you that you're using can be impactful from like you being hired or working a job or whatever? So anyways, not to get on a rabbit hole on that, but anyways, that's where I kind of think it's going. So you teach something CRTO formula, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Break it down for us.
So 2 engagements, I obviously do a lot of work with startups, but I'm also doing one-on-one coaching with executives that want to learn AI. The CRTR formula is the most basic way of prompting, but it's giving it the context, what role it's playing, what the task is, and what the output is. And we've talked about this significantly, but anyone that is looking to expand on their skill set or just start, making sure that they're infusing it into their day-to-day, I just call it like an AI first mentality. Put it on a Post-it note. What is the content? What is the context? What is the role? What's the task with the output? And how do we start to, then you start going into like prompt engineering, and then you have like these mega prompts. But if I were to tell anybody to start anywhere, it'd be like, make sure your prompt includes those 4 components and start there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like some of like the RTF, like role task format. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the RTO, RTF, right? But the context piece is, I think, like really, really, really the key and critical. What are I know you mentioned some, but like 3 AI tools that you use every single day that you couldn't live without? And this doesn't have to be like for the beginner or whatever, like
Yeah.
your tools that you live like every day couldn't live without.
Claude for sure. Claude Code, Claude Cowork, more Claude Code, hopefully. I just need to find more time to continue exploring it. Granola for me is my designated call transcript. Same as you, it doesn't connect to calls, which I appreciate, and it only does the transcription. But I can create different, they call them recipes, where depending on what the call is about, it knows what sort of insights to pull from that call. And then it will help me to like take that and turn it into a proposal or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I would say third is I'm a heavy GenSpark user. I used to use Manus quite a bit, but for some reason I just felt like the model kind of fell off. But GenSpark, I can pound out so much content and materials for clients in GenSpark. I actually have a secondary laptop that I'll run it on. I mean, I think head of JP Morgan Health, which is one of the biggest investor conferences for healthcare, I put like 16 pitch decks together on my flight to San Francisco. They were
crazy.
They were like all kind of working. So I think, in the world of investors and startups, decks are like you live and breathe them. So being able to offset some of that deck building work has been very transformative to my business. But now that Claude can build decks, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I'm like very much with decks and stuff, a perfectionist. And like, I took on a project like not that long ago, building a deck for someone. And like, it's like, I honestly don't want to do them anymore because I will like, especially if it's like a MedTech device or something, like I dig in too hard and I'm like reading every study they have and then doing like this and that. And I'm just like, I get too deep in it. And then I'm like, hey, like I said this was going to take this long, but I know it's taking longer because it's my own fault. And so then I'm like, am I just like doing this work, I guess, for free after I've hit that mark or whatever? But yeah, it really is for decks. And then the Claude and Excel has been big. I have the same on Claude and Claude Code and Claude Cowork. Mm-hmm. Claude Cowork has been interesting. Like, I feel like it can be like crazy, amazing, useful. Mm-hmm. I think the connectors and stuff, it's been in research mode. So like, that's not surprising, but Claude Code for sure. Like I have entire, kind of like offerings and things that we, do for different people or workflows that we like do that are like fully orchestrated with agents in Claude Code. And it's like amazing. Like I can't imagine doing this stuff without it, frankly, at this point. Let's see. My other one, I use Bloom.ai. Okay. You can load in your brand like via URL. Mm-hmm. And it like extracts, you can upload the logo and stuff, but then you can upload assets. Think like almost like creating a brand in Canva, right? So you can like have these different elements and logos and assets and reference images and things like that. But then it's basically just like a Google Gemini wrapper, but the way that they do, I'm pretty sure like the system prompting around like your brand and the logo and everything, like you can describe really, really awesome images, and it's designed for like creating like, whether it's like LinkedIn ads or meta ads or this or that, like it's just really, really good. Like it's almost like if you had a 2,000 word system prompt that you fed into like, Google Gemini Nano Banana Pro to like make you, but like it's hard to do that every time. And then like the adaptability and stuff, but like that one's like really, really good. I've found searchable is the other one. SEO, AEO. I don't know if you've like messed with that, but like it allows you to track prompts like that are important to your business or a client's business. And it will ask, So like like for one of our clients, I'm tracking 58 prompts and queries. Think like what people are putting into ChatGPT and stuff. And it will show you the actual results from when that was asked to ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Gemini and Google AI. Wow. So you can see like the responses. It reruns it like every day or every other day. So you can see how things change. You can see sentiment. You can see if you were cited. You can see your competitors that were cited. Searchable lets you track your competitors. You can take a prompt that you're not ranking on and like basically use that as like the grounding point for a SEO, AEO optimized article. It does article drafting in there. It has the meta description. It's pretty rad. And there's even hooks up to your Google Search Console. It has an agent that's dialed. So you can be like, pull data on this and then help me do the X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. Make dashboards and stuff.
I know what I'm going to be geeking out on this weekend then.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. I'd say those are mine. I have a quick question too. I know we won't go too long here. I keep seeing this where it's like, people are like, we're using Salesforce and HubSpot. I'm like, what?
That's pretty common.
Why? I don't understand it.
They use HubSpot for marketing, and then they use Salesforce for more like from a traditional like sales pipeline tracking and whatnot. Because Salesforce's answer to marketing is Marketo, and most organizations just don't find it to be super useful. I personally hate HubSpot. I've had to deploy it for several clients, and every single time I'm like grimacing the entire time. I say I'm a Salesforce admin. I'm like a Salesforce like actual like I can go in and build back end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually like pretty the standard tech stack and on the software side.
I guess like I just in my head I'm like with it's not cheap and I'm like if all you're using it for is like marketing email blasts, like use ConvertKit or use
Yeah,
Kit or
there's
use
so, but
you know what I'm saying?
a lot of organizations don't know that those types of tools exist. Like truthfully,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like
That's kind of
my two websites are built on Kajabi, and I use Flowdesk for all of my emails. And people always ask me like, why are you using all these different tools? And I'm like, well, first of all, if LinkedIn were to kick my account out someday, I want to pull all those people with me. So you should always be thinking about building an
yeah.
email list. But second, like tools like Kajabi or ClickFunnels or Go High Level or whatever, they have so much more functionality for smaller companies. I wish more startups would consider
Yeah.
that tech stack versus sales. Like they always just default to Salesforce. And
Yeah.
again, same with any AI, like what is the like start with the end goal.
Yeah.
And
And
if
I've
you're just
also like
doing it to be doing it, then you should rethink your strategy.
yeah, I've also I feel like I've never seen anyone that was like, we love HubSpot and we're using it to its full potential. It's always just like we use it for kind of for this or for this. And I feel like because of the complexity, it's like then the reps don't want to use it because when they log in, it's a nightmare. Whenever
Right.
in all reality, you kind of just need like a Kanban board for your sales reps and just to like them like put a
Move the
note
deal.
in, move the
Yeah.
stage, like
Yeah.
move the stage. Okay. So I know you got an event coming up. Last question here, and then I'll like
Yeah.
turn it back over to you after this question
Yeah.
to close it out as well. But like you got an event coming up. You told me about it, and I was like, dude, I wish I could go. This is incredible. But like, tell me about it. Like, I know there's still some spots open, I think. So like, if you're
Yep.
listening to this, like, you got to tune in. But
So-
but tell me about it.
I'm going to start up by saying it's called the Go-To-Market Cohort. And I wish I would have called it something different. I will next round because I think a lot of people feel like, is this to teach me go-to-market? That's not what it is. I essentially will work with these organizations. I've got a mixture of consultants. I've got some salespeople in there. I've got some founders in there. It's $2,500 to participate, 6 weeks long. And we build everything with AI. Think of it as like your own growth, like operating system enabled by AI. Everything from who are your buyers, how are you marketing yourself, how do you build a content engine that runs by without you being there, how do you productize it and build your right pitch deck. 6 weeks, very intense 6 weeks. But if anyone is, a revenue leader and they're like, I just want to learn how to use AI, this is going to be a really great opportunity to like dig in and go deep really quickly. And some of it might not be applicable to your specific role, but it's still going to make you a better revenue owner in the end. Same for founders. They have a short window to show ROI to their investors. So my 6-week window is to say, like, we're going to have your entire go-to-market strategy ready and deployed in 6 weeks. So then you can spend the rest of the year actually selling and building your business. But we kick off March 23rd. It's $2,500. I'm sure we'll include a link in the podcast, but I'm super stoked about it. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and just if you're like a founder out there and like sales leader, maybe you're going to help with sales and you're in marketing, maybe you're clinical and want to get more into sales, whatever.
Yes.
Or like specifically like the founders, like here, there's a lot of bullshit you can spend $2,500 on, but like the ability to like just think about your quarterly investor meeting, right? Your board meeting, being able to put that you went to this thing, you met these people, you gained these skills, here was the outputs, you revised your plan, like being able to put that in there and only having to pay $25 to be able to get all of that plus all the personal growth you'll be able to get, like highly like I like honestly wish I could go, Brett.
It's all right.
But
you
okay,
can join the next one.
Yeah, let me look again too. Maybe I'll move some stuff around. Like closing it out here. Frankly, honestly, we got to do this again, Brett. Yeah, I would love to just do this again at some point. But like closing it out, anything you want to like parting words of wisdom, like Brett's rules to live by. Anything else you want to plug, like whatever, like kind of floor is yours to close us out.
I don't know. I think, I just because I get asked a lot, I just have to continue to tell people to stay curious. And there's a lot of fear mongering with AI and just the job market in general, MedTech, finance, etc. And I think, I want to just continue shouting from the rooftops that those that get curious about AI and start creating like their own ecosystem of like, how do I do what I'm really good at better than anyone else with AI? you're going to secure your job for the next 10 years. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, and I would say if you're curious about LinkedIn, and I think you and I can attest to this, LinkedIn is not dead. LinkedIn is remarkable. Post whatever you want to post, keep posting. I haven't done one outbound message in almost 18 months. And I'm hitting a little over 100K a month by myself. So
yeah,
I mean,
that's awesome.
LinkedIn is a very good opportunity for anyone to be generating business, and I wish more people would invest in it.
Yep. Be curious, have a bias to action, right?
Yes.
Get comfortable with stuff you don't know yet, because you'll learn it if you just get exposed to it. Expose yourself, right? And then on LinkedIn too, I agree. Also, I did this recently. I'm going to kind of try to do it every quarter, but like you can download every bit of your LinkedIn data, right?
Yeah.
I highly recommend doing that, because you can plug it into AI and get like a ton of really good insights out of it. Like LinkedIn's only showing you the people and the things and whatever that it wants you to see, because it's in service of its own algorithm. But like you can take that and then surface things that are in service of you and what you want it to do. So Brett, this was so awesome. Yeah. Everybody go follow her, even your YouTube, which you told people not to, tisk. But go follow her on LinkedIn, go hit her up, check out the event, like all that stuff. Brett, this was amazing. We got to get you back. I mean, we both could talk about AI all day. So maybe we just do a only AI podcast after this. But seriously, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you. Cool. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. I know you got a ton out of this episode. I know I did. So yeah, thanks for sticking around the whole episode. Peace. Thank you.